here we're back again in the whole wheatery this morning, invigorated, enlivened, awake, alert, alive. And I'm sitting next to Pamm Larry, who traveled from Chico, California is your home. Pamm, tell us, what in the world are you doing?
Well, I call myself the initial instigator for Proposition 37, which happened last year here in California, to label genetically engineered foods. And although it didn't pass last fall, it actually catalyzed a tremendous amount of activity around labeling around the country. And so we've got states, I don't know if you've talked about this already today, but Connecticut passed and Maine passed, and they're just waiting on the governor to sign their legislation to label GMOs, and they've both said that they will sign. Massachusetts is getting involved. Washington State has a ballot initiative that's being voted on this fall. And in California, we're talking about doing another ballot initiative for 2014. So our groups, my job as the initial instigator and chief rabble-rouser for Prop 37 was to travel around the state, and I would be able to come in contact with these amazing people from all over the state and be able to get to know them. And they also, like, this is what started this whole thing. I might have been the first person, but it's really how all of us came together and said yes.
Oh, activated by the sacred yes is what I call it, Pam, because we know we need that higher source, that higher power.
Definitely.
We certainly need that. And for Cheryl, who owns the whole wheatery and she's been in business for 30 years, and her heart's been fully planted here for 30 years. My heart's been fully planted in the Antelope Valley for 26 years. But forever voting with my dollars with the organic foods and supporting our farmers, and Cheryl too. So, 25 years later, you know this, now it's just this timeliness, March Against Monsanto came forward, internationally, social media.
Right, social media.
Because the big resounding silence during the May 25th March Against Monsanto was such an awakening for all of us.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was really blatantly clear that they don't have an interest in covering this except for the industry talking points.
Oh, yes. And, of course, the way you know it is because they call us consumers, and it's all about the profits and monocropping and really not even just total disregard of what you're doing to your neighbor. The air contamination, the rain washing of down all of these chemicals. And so it's been this unbridled greed, more, and the definition of insanity is to keep doing what's not working.
Yes.
If it was working, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but it ain't working.
Yeah, it's really not. And talking about the soil, how they're killing the soil, definitely killing the soil. The soil is also one of the major components that sequesters carbon dioxide and turns it into oxygen. Plants are dying more. They have to add more and more chemicals on there. There are papers out talking about how this system cannot sustain. It cannot keep going. And I don't know how many of you are watching, but as we speak right now, the G8 is in the UK, in Ireland actually, talking about basically what the folks in Africa are talking, the new colonialism, where they're coming in, they are forming, instead of just providing aid and support through nonprofit organizations, they are now going in, and religious groups of faith, they are now doing corporate government partnerships to basically take over all the small farmers in Africa and require that, just like in India and other places where they've gone, that they buy the seeds that are so much more expensive and that they cannot save and reuse, and that they have to have all these chemical inputs. It's just really a travesty what's going on around. Yeah.
And it's been really, Monsanto's been it was since 1901, and it's the unbridled greed that's not only the destructive of our food source, but it's also all the weaponry that's used to contribute to the devastation, and then the veiled illusion that this healthcare system that they're trying so hard to hold on to is non-functioning, and is a part of that twisted thinking as well. Heavy dependency on pharmaceuticals. We never had compressed, tablet-formed medicines before. It was always indigenous. It was within our communities, and we had our healers who knew where the roots were and the bark was and the leaves were, and they were the ancient knowledge that would be able to truly right the system. So all of these illusions, these grand illusions of success,
to me,
not my definition of success.
well, this morning for me, when I was driving up here, because I've been staying in Los Angeles, is this realization that we have been given, and we have co-created, and we have this amazing planet. And the whole thing comes from this basic premise that somehow it isn't good enough, and somehow it has to be changed, and somehow we have to fight nature instead of learning how to work with nature and with the planet. This planet that has sustained us and helped us grow and flourish. You know, and what I really love is, you know, when they call us Luddites, you know, that the fact that we don't like science, and that is not true. We like science. We like science that is life affirming.
And the scientists are going,
Right.
I mean, they're all blowing the horn, saying money is not going to improve the quality of our life.
Right, exactly. And money is bastardizing some science. You know, I mean, a lot of the science, most of the science out there that's happening and talking. I've learned so much in this that I thought I knew, but I didn't know. But just, you know, how, you know, talking to Ignacio Chapella, who is in the movie The Future of Food and has done quite a bit of research on the corn in Mexico. He was telling us just how corporations have basically bought UC Berkeley and through their large endowments, and now they sit on the board determining the curriculums. You know, so it's like, you know, these young people go there and they learn all of the party lines, and then they just spew them out. It's a very clever plan to indoctrinate the youth to think a certain way. And, you know, science, if you're only using, you know, science, I think, my degree is in religious studies, so I've always seen things like philosophy and science as a form of religion. They're their own religions. Science in particular is a way, because if you look at it, it's like how you answer the big questions is what I look at as of religion. And science tries to do that. Why are we here? You find that if you go to quantum physics, they're coming back around to what all the mystics have been saying for millennia. You know, but if but they're incorporating more than just their
intelligentsia, their analytical valve. Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, it becomes a fear, the teaching tool of fear.
Exactly.
Because it ties into their lifestyle, which is quite fluffed up because they're spewing the party line. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes, the 1% is anxious and the 99% is frustrated. Right. Because we are not, the lack of willingness to come together heart to heart and human to human, because I challenge our own Commander-in-Chief and First Lady that their garden on the White House lawn is organic. Mm-hmm. I would eat your vegetables because I know it'd be the highest quality food that's on the planet, and because it shows in you. It shows in your children. It shows in us when we have a vitality and a quality of life. And then it also shows in the sickness of our population, because so few even understand the lack of quality in their life. While there's so many, not so many, but another few that are trying to profit continually, and it's a global epidemic.
But the really wonderful thing is the shifting. It's the shift. I was talking with the person who's helped me the most, and her name's Stacy, and we were talking about how she's like, well, why, blah, blah. I'm like, it is changing.
It is changing. We feel it. We know it.
And it's just we who are in the middle of it want it now, because we've been doing it for a while. We want it now. And we forget that we live in this place of space and time, and things are evolving. It's just they're not happening fast enough for us. So rather than focusing on the fact that they're not happening fast enough, I would like to encourage us all. And I do this all the time, because part of it is about looking at the truth, and so sometimes the stuff is pretty alarming, but it's only when we look at the truth that we finally shift within ourselves and decide to get up and do something about it. And every time each one of us stands up, every one that is added to the whole stands up and adds to it, the more powerful we are, and the faster we automatically create the shift. I've been told that there are over 8,000 people on this right now, probably all around the country. There are groups that are working on this in every state across this country, and in Hawaii, they're in Canada, they're in South America, they're all over the place. You can contact me at labelgmos.org. Just do the contact there. I get all those emails, and I will connect you with your local groups, with your states. Some states are still working on legislation. Some are just beginning and building their grassroots group. every time a new person is added, you touch more people. It's so exciting to see this going on.
We call it be the virus.
Yeah, be the virus.
We're the virus. We're the infection. We are the infection, and we're activated by the sacred yes. And we know that what we're asking for is what each and every one of us deserve. So why not just stay optimistic? And through my growth, and letting go of this thing called time, it really stepped me into eternity. And to know that we have an open-ended amount of time and opportunities, miracles that can happen instantaneously. And this is how the shift happens. But it's the power of one. And when I was stepping out, understanding how to reclaim my personal power and where I was being disempowered and who I was giving my trust to, who wasn't worthy of my trust. As I came deeper understanding in that, the power of one, then I was able to align with someone else who also had empowered himself. And then it is the most potent energy, divine, and it's the great company on the journey. We see this no matter where we are. It's a love fest, and people are very hungry.
They are, and
very hungry. And this food that we're told is food will not satisfy us. It won't, because it's not designed to complement us cellularly. It's meant to manipulate us cellularly. There's the difference.
That's very powerful and very true. I was listening yesterday to a show where someone was talking about an experiment they do with 3 seeds. One seed they plant and they think all sorts of negative thoughts. Then the second one that they think all sorts of loving thoughts. And the third one they plant and they're just neutral. And the one, of course, that was planted with loving thoughts thrives. The one that was planted with negative thoughts gets ill and has a difficult time, and then the one that's planted, just kind of does something in between. But I also want to share with you that a lot of you might be depressed out there because it is a grieving process that we go through when we wake up and we realize what's happening to our planet and our food and our water and our air.
We want to think someone out there is really looking out for us.
Right.
Yeah, we have that basic desire. And then the delight.
And then we actually go through the grieving process of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And my anger was so fierce that what triggered 37 was my anger, and which I then put inward because I believed I was powerless, became depression, and I became catatonic. But I have to tell you that the inspiration for 37 came down to me all at once one morning, and right when I was in that hover state. So what I'm trying to tell you, I'm bringing this up though, is to tell you that since that moment, I have not been depressed. I have been angry, I have been, frustrated, I have been all sorts of things, but I have not been depressed. So, and because it's fun, and I feel like I'm doing something finally.
It's purposeful.
It is, it's fun.
It's so purposeful, and you get the best company along the journey, which just makes it worth every tear. And then by sharing, the stories and the fear and the radical honesty of our emotions. Because grief isn't just in the form of death. Grief comes and visits us many times, and that too is a demon. Once we release that, the liberation that comes, spiritual liberation, when you just decide you're not going to repress, suppress, depress your own intuitive knowing, your own innate wisdom. That is one of the mechanisms that's inherent in our being. So as we release that, no more suppression. Don't even purchase cough suppressants, cough repressants, because it's all diminishing and layering what's going on. We liberate it and we experience the freedom and the joy.
And the funny thing is that all that negativity takes a tremendous amount of energy to keep in place. And once we release it, we have an exponential positive force that just comes out through us and connects. When we first started this, I was calling all the groups hives. And I love that concept of all these worker bees coming together and creating this hive kind of in cooperation and love and working in partnership. And we've maintained that kind of energy throughout the state of California at our grassroots level. It's been so rewarding seeing our group our group doesn't have huge infighting. It doesn't have. This is not to say we don't have bumps and jiggles, because it's part of being human. But we have somehow been able to look at the larger picture, look at our stuff, and come back together very quickly, like within a very short amount of time. And the communities that we're creating around the state, and then the larger community around we have the individual communities around the state, then we have the state community, and now this is happening all across our country. It's been happening in other countries for a long time, and that's another thing that's been so exciting about this, is to realize that we are now part of this global thing. I mean, the March Against Monsanto just was like so synchronistic.
Yes, synchronistic is the word. That's how we know we're being led by the heart.
Yeah.
We can see all the little segue and the dovetails and how it can. None of us thought that. I never knew Pamm Larry until Brittany Holland said you're going to be here.
Oh, cool. Cool.
And then through the internet, I got to see your willingness to talk about the grief that's inherent in the process.
It is inherent, and it's an important piece. It's an important piece to tell the truth to ourselves, because if we bury, that's when we start doing all those kinds of behaviors that are like buying ourselves French fries from McDonald's that contain GMOs and trans fats.
The hidden agenda, and
keeping it stuffed.
It's stuffing it down instead of liberating it.
I'd like to ask,
Sure.
the extent of the movement that's happening now, isn't it because of the internet, because of social networking that we're able to do this?
I think so. I think that's a huge piece of it, and I think that this is the way it disseminates to places where we don't know. I mean, I used Facebook originally to start to reach out. It's how I came in contact with Stacy, and it continues on. And I would also like to caution us not to stay there, because it's also about looking in each other's eyes.
Well, love is action.
Exactly, and connecting and hugging each other, and getting out on the streets and going and talking to people who aren't on the internet.